What if the chunky coloured pin sitting in the bottom of your jewellery box, the one you inherited and never wore because it looked too old-fashioned, is worth more than every piece of modern jewellery you actually do wear? 10 pieces of old Bakelite jewellery have sold at auction for hundreds of dollars, several have crossed 1,000, and the single most valuable piece on this list is one that looks, to most people, like an ordinary little brooch from the 1930s that somebody's grandmother wore to church. Let us find out if it is sitting in your jewelry box right now. Here is what most people have never been told, and it is the reason Bakelite jewelry keeps getting donated by the bagful to thrift stores every single week. Bakelite is not a gemstone. It is not precious metal. It is an early plastic invented in 1907 by a Belgian chemist named Leo Baekeland, and for roughly 2 decades, starting in the late 1920s, American jewelry designers used it to make some of the most imaginative, most collectible costume pieces ever produced. The material itself is unremarkable. What decides the value is the form it was made into, the color it was made in, the craftsmanship of the carving, the name of the designer who shaped it, and whether the piece has survived in original, unmodified condition. Get those signals right, and something sitting in a jewelry box for 50 years can quietly sell for what a car payment costs. Let me say the honest thing before we go any further. Most Bakelite jewelry is worth $15 to $60. Plain bangles, simple buttons, common molded pieces with no particular design distinction. Those are the ordinary end of the market, and they are the majority of what exists. But the distance between a $20 piece and a $1,200 piece is not magic or luck. It is a short list of things you can learn to see and feel and test tonight. And every single item on this list is going to give you one of those tests. Number 10. Butterscotch Bakelite Bead Necklace. What most people see is a strand of amber or yellowish beads that looks like inexpensive costume jewelry, the kind that came in a department store box and lived at the back of a drawer. Here is what most people do not see. Butterscotch is one of the most desirable Bakelite colors among collectors, an opaque, warm yellow amber tone that the material held differently than any modern plastic can replicate. A strand of large butterscotch Bakelite beads has sold for $95 to $350 depending on bead size, length, and condition of the clasp. Your test tonight. Rub one of the beads firmly between your palms for 30 seconds, packins, generating heat from friction. Then bring it immediately to your nose. Genuine Bakelite releases a distinctive chemical smell when warmed, something between camphor and the chemistry of an old darkroom. Modern plastic smells like nothing or like faint petroleum. If you smell that sharp chemical note, you are holding real Bakelite. The loss I see most often, donated in a bag of mixed costume jewelry, beads and all, for the price of the donation receipt. The butterscotch strand was the money in the bag. Number 9. Laminated bangle bracelet. On a shelf or in a drawer, a laminated Bakelite bangle looks like a bold two-tone plastic bracelet, usually black fused to cream, or red fused to yellow, or green layered over butterscotch. It presents as a chunky vintage fashion piece, and most people price it or donate it as exactly that. Here is what the appearance does not tell you. Laminated Bakelite bangles were made by bonding separate sheets of different colored Bakelite under heat and pressure, then cutting and shaping the bracelet from the fused block. It was a technically demanding process, and the results are visually unlike anything modern plastic manufacturing produces. Laminated bangles have sold for $75 to $250 each, and a matched stack of 3 in the same color combination has crossed 400. Your test: look directly at the edge cross-section of the bracelet, the thin band of the bangle's wall. You should see 2 or more distinct, cleanly fused color layers with no visible adhesive or gap between them. The colors simply stop and another begins, with a perfectly clean line that is laminated. Bakelite, a piece that looks striped on the surface but shows only one material at the edge, is painted or dipped and worth significantly less, the loss given to a grandchild as a dress-up bracelet, because to the adult eye it looked like a toy. Number 8. Reverse carved floral brooch. This piece will fool you because the way it works is designed to be invisible. A reverse carved Bakelite brooch is carved from the back, not the front, so that looking at the piece from the front, you see a design that appears to float inside the material, like looking through glass at a flower suspended beneath the surface. The carving is then filled with paint from behind, which gives the design its color. The effect looks almost three-dimensional and nothing like ordinary flat costume jewelry. Reverse carved and back painted Bakelite brooches have sold for $65 to $250. Your test: turn the brooch completely over and look at the back. If you see visible raw carving, a recessed area where material has been cut away and filled with color, you are looking at a reverse carved piece. The front should look like the design lives inside the plastic, not painted on its surface. The loss: sold next to ordinary painted brooches at the same estate sale price of $4. Because both look like colourful old pins from across the table, the key difference lies entirely on the side that was face down. Number 7. Figural vegetable and fruit pin cluster. And this is the one where I have to slow you down because it is the most common source of expensive mistakes in Bakelite collecting. And it goes in both directions. The carved fruit and vegetable pin cluster, a bunch of carved Bakelite corn, a spray of tomatoes, a bundle of carrots, was one of the most popular jewelry forms of the 1930s and 1940s, and genuine Bakelite examples have sold for $225 to $350. But here is the complication. Many similar figural pins from the same era are not Bakelite at all. They are celluloid, an earlier and different material. Or they are lucite, which is a later clear acrylic. Both look similar in photos and from across a table. Celluloid figural pins are worth $8 to $15. Lucite figural pins carry their own modest collector value. The material is everything, and you cannot tell by looking. Your test: you need 2 tests for this piece, not 1. First, the friction test. Rub the piece firmly for 30 seconds and smell for that sharp Bakelite chemical note. Then, if you have it available, the simichrome test. Simichrome is a metal polishing compound sold at most hardware stores. Apply a small amount to a cotton ball and rub the back or an inconspicuous spot on the piece. If the cotton turns yellow, the piece is Bakelite. Celluloid and lucite will not turn the cotton yellow. The loss: a genuine Bakelite corncob cluster sold for $6 at a flea market because the seller called it old plastic jewelry and the buyer did not run either test. Number 6. Figural animal pin, and specifically the carved Scotty dog. Scotty dog pins, along with horses, elephants, and cats, are among the most hunted individual pieces in all of Bakelite jewelry collecting. Collectors have been after them for 40 years, and the supply of genuine carved examples in good condition shrinks every year. A carved Bakelite Scotty dog pin in dark brown or black has sold for $85 to $185. Rarer animals, a carved elephant, a prancing horse, a seated cat, have crossed $300. The quality of the carving is the primary value signal. Your test: look closely at the surface detail under a magnifying glass or the camera on your phone. Hand-carved Bakelite shows individual tool marks, each tiny line of fur or feather cut separately and with slight variation. Molded, mass-produced pieces show repeating detail that looks machine perfect and uniform because it is. Hand-carved is worth multiples of molded, even in the same animal and the same color. The loss I watch happen at every antique fair. A hand-carved Scotty pin sits in the same tray as a dozen molded animal pins, all priced at $5, because nobody knelt down with a phone, camera, and looked at the fur. But before we reach the 5 most valuable pieces, there is something worth saying plainly about everything this list is built on. The Bakelite jewelry that turns out to be worth serious money does not announce itself. It is in the same jewelry box as the clip-on earrings from the 1970s and the broken watch and the single pearl earring missing its pair. It goes to the thrift store in the same paper bag as all of it. Every week, in estate sales and charity donations and house clearings, pieces worth hundreds of dollars leave the house for under 10 because the person holding them had never been shown the 3 or 4 signals that separate ordinary, vintage jewelry from genuine Bakelite collectibles. Those signals are learnable in an afternoon. That is exactly why I put together a guide called the Bakelite Buyer's Handbook, a full walkthrough of every major color, every carving style, and every test you need to run before you price or sell a single piece. It is available in the description below if you want it before the next estate sale you walk into. Now, let us get to the pieces that matter the most. Number 5. Carved Red Bakelite Bangle Bracelet Set. Red is the single most desirable Bakelite color among serious collectors, a deep, uniform cherry red that the material held in a way no modern plastic achieves. A single, deeply carved red Bakelite bangle has sold at $85 to $185. A matched graduated set of 3 carved red bangles, each slightly wider than the last, intended to be worn stacked together, has cost $350 to $450. Here is the rule that costs people the most money with bangles. Never separate a graduated set. The ascending sizes were designed together and priced together and collected together. Sell them individually and you have turned a $400 set into 3 $50 pieces. Your test: the red should be deep and uniform, with no fading to orange at the thinner sections of the bangle wall. Orange fading under strong light often signals a different and less valuable material. Then look at the carved pattern and confirm it runs continuously all the way around without any interruption or flat section where a machine could not reach. The loss: a set of 5 graduated red bangles, sold one at a time, across a morning for $15 each. Together they were worth $425. Number 4. Polka dot or dot inlaid Bakelite piece. This is the item in the Bakelite world that commands attention the moment a knowledgeable collector walks into a room and sees it, and that most other people walk straight past without a second look. A polka dot Bakelite piece, a brooch, a bangle, or a pin, has dots of contrasting colored Bakelite inserted directly into the body of the piece as separate physical elements: black base with cream dot, butterscotch with red dots. The contrast is graphic and bold, and nothing about it looks accidental. A polka dot Bakelite brooch has sold for $150 to $400, depending on size, color combination, and completeness. Your test: the dots must be flush with or slightly raised from the surface, never recessed into it. Run a fingernail very lightly across the surface. You should feel the distinct circular edge of each dot as a separate physical element. Dots that are painted on feel perfectly flat and smooth under the nail, and are worth a fraction of true inlaid dots. The loss: mislabeled at an antique fair as novelty jewelry, priced at $12 because the seller had never heard the phrase polka dot Bakelite and did not know there was a phrase for it. Number 3. Apple juice Bakelite, and the color trap that costs people money every time. Apple juice is a collector term for a specific variety of translucent, pale amber Bakelite that ranges from a clear golden yellow to a warm, nearly colorless tone. It is called apple juice because holding a thin piece up to light is almost exactly the color of fresh pressed apple juice. Most people who own an apple juice piece do not know the collector vocabulary exists. And because it does not look like the bold, opaque colors most people associate with vintage plastic, it gets passed over as a plain or unremarkable piece. A plain, uncarved apple juice Bakelite bangle has sold for $125 to $300, purely on the basis of color and condition. A carved apple juice bangle has cost $350 to $450. The problem is that apple juice Bakelite is the color most easily confused with lucite, which is a clear acrylic produced later. Both are pale and translucent. Your test: you need the semichrome cotton test here. Lucite will not yellow the cotton. Apple juice Bakelite will. Weight is your second signal. Bakelite is measurably heavier than lucite of the same dimensions. If 2 similar pale translucent bangles are in front of you and one feels noticeably heavier, the heavier one is likely Bakelite. The loss: tested informally as clear plastic, priced at $8, when the right 2-minute test would have put it at $300. Number 2. And this is the single habit that costs people more total money in Bakelite jewelry than any other: never separate a parure. A parure is a matched set of jewelry pieces, at minimum a brooch and earrings. And in the best examples, a brooch, earrings, bracelet, and necklace, all designed and made in the same pattern and the same bakelite color as a coordinated set. Individual bakelite pieces from a parure sell for $25 to $75. Each, when separated, a complete matched parure. All four pieces together, in good condition, with matching color and pattern, has sold for $350 to over $600. A demi-parure, just the brooch and earrings together as a matched pair, still sells for 2 to 3 times the individual piece values. The test that protects this value: set every piece from a suspected parure side by side under natural daylight, not indoor light, not a phone flashlight. The color must be truly identical across all pieces. Bakelite, aged over decades, can shift color slightly at different rates, so a piece that has been stored in a sunny window and one kept in a box will look slightly different, even if they started as a set. Match the carving or molded pattern on each piece, and check that all the hardware, the pin backs, the earring clips, the bracelet clasp, comes from the same era and the same style of manufacture. A near match is a married set assembled from different sources, and it prices at individual values regardless of how close it looks on a quick glance. The loss: earrings sold in one lot, brooch in another, bracelet given to a niece, necklace left on the dresser. A $500 parure becomes $90 spread across 3 different households. Number 1, Martha Sleeper, the name most people have never heard on the back of a pin most people would never look at twice. Martha Sleeper was a Hollywood actress of the 1930s who, in 1935, pivoted to designing figural bakelite jewelry, and the pieces she created, small carved figural pins of animals, characters, and everyday objects, became some of the most sought-after signed bakelite pieces in the world. A signed Martha Sleeper figural pin sold at auction for over $1,200. Several have crossed 2,000, and the reason most people who have one have no idea is that the pieces do not look extraordinary. They look like a charming little figural pin from the Depression era: a carved bakelite chicken, a small duck, a pair of cherries, a figure on a bicycle, the kind of thing someone bought at a department store counter in 1937 and wore to a party and then put away and never thought about again. Here is the truth that changes everything. The value is not in the carving, it is in the signature. Martha Sleeper signed her pieces, and the signature is on the back of the clasp. Hardware: raised text that reads Martha Sleeper, sometimes small enough that you need to tilt the pin under a light to read it clearly. Your final test tonight, and it is the same action every single item on this list has been training you to do. Turn every figural pin over, remove it from the jewelry box entirely, hold the back clasp under a lamp and read every word pressed or raised on the metal. Most of what you read will be patent numbers, or country of origin marks, or nothing at all. But somewhere in a jewelry box in an American home right now, there is a small carved bakelite pin with a name on the clasp that most of its owners spent decades not reading. And that name is worth what a month of mortgage payments costs. Every item tonight came down to the same decision: turn it over, read what is there, believe the back of the piece, not the front. The carving on the front is what anyone can see. The signature on the back is the truth. Do not let a single piece leave your hands until you have read it.